A film critic for Financial Times named Antonia Quirk calls this film a marvelously stable thriller that squeezes you so expertly you react in all the ways it wants. Leonard Maltin makes his debut on this podcast's intros by saying, "The world of politics provides all the drama and satiric fodder any filmmaker could ask for. And even though the public has shown indifference to such movies in recent years, Hollywood keeps making them." And Letterboxd user TildaFan19 says, "Ryan Gosling can abandon me at an abortion clinic any day." On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of the Ides of March.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
At 2 starfighters.
We're going Julius Caesar, Shakespeare, yeah. Oh my.
Acting. It's the Ides of March.
It is the Ides of March. Are we releasing this on the Ides of March? Yeah.
We are releasing, yes, this will be...
Beware the day that we are releasing this.
Beware the Ides of this episode of Ruined Childhoods.
Yeah, and welcome to Ruined Childhoods. We are, a brother duo who is obsessed with movies, and we like to talk about them, and we made an excuse to talk about them while recording it by framing it around the idea of what we would be able to do if we had to bring back these properties as a remake, reboot, sequel, prequel, etc., etc., etc. And...
Had to.
What's that?
I said, if we had to.
Yeah.
We are advocates of originality.
Yes, but I mean, there's always something to be said. And this movie that we're talking about is an adaptation from a stage play. So
yeah. And and also, as we've learned in the past, while the idea of reviving a property, especially a favorite, it can be a little iffy, but sometimes you can really create some great art out of it. I know frequently we refer back to the series based on Fargo.
Yeah.
And who would have ever thought that you could take that movie and turn it, and they did try to turn it into a series originally that was just kind of like the movie, but who would have thought that you could turn it into a series that kind of functions and pays homage to the original, but also has taken on a life of its own, like the FX series Fargo. But it definitely it pays homage to not just Fargo, but like Coen brothers, the cinematic universe of the Coens in general. But anyway, point being, while we are advocates for originality, we're also advocates for originality in the realm of reboots and I almost said rebakes, reboots.
Instant rebates, would that be if they mail-in rebates?
Yeah, rebates. Or
if you're talking rebakes, it's maybe a twice-baked potato.
A rebaked potato, yeah. A remake, remixed. Has anyone really remixed a movie?
That is a great question. Yes.
I feel like Oliver Stone with Alexander.
Who did this? I feel like it was Topher Grace. Took, oh my God, what was it? Was it a Star Wars thing? Hold on. Topher Grace remix movie. Topher Grace's Close Encounters remix. No, is that what I'm thinking of?
Okay.
Topher Grace's Boogie Nights remix.
So apparently this is something Topher Grace. Okay, well that answers that question. What's Topher Grace been up to?
Yeah. Okay. Topher Grace edited the Star Wars prequels into one 85-minute movie. That's what I'm thinking of.
Good for him.
Yes,
that's great.
Creative guy. So that is a remix. That is a movie remix.
There we go. Wow. Okay, we'll have to pop that one into the new intro song version 2.0.
Yeah. Remix? Yeah. Remix. What are we? 159 episodes in.
Maybe at
Yeah.
episode 200 we can shake things up a little bit.
Who know? You know what? The time is always ripe for doing such things. Not that you and I always have ripe time for doing.
No,
it,
no,
but-
we don't. No, we don't. And
No.
Dan, this was an opportunity for me to use some of my precious time to rewatch the Ides of March. Had you seen it before?
So I had actually seen the Ides of March prior to its release in 2011. I reviewed it for a site called Pendragon's Post.
Okay.
And I actually did find my review.
Oh my God.
I went through all my old emails and found my review of Ides of March. And
What did 2011
I'll-
Dan think of it? Wow.
What did 2011
11 years ago.
2011 So 2011 Dan thought, oh, hold on one second, let me get it open. But so what I remember from seeing it, I remember feeling a little underwhelmed by it and feeling a bit, I guess kind of like disappointed. Like it wasn't sure what it wanted to be, like thriller, satire, drama.
Well, okay. So first of all,
This was when I first saw it.
while you're
by the
pulling
way.
this up, I'm gonna just give a little bit of, I guess, backstory to it, because I remember this movie because it had the great marketing move of making the poster featuring Ryan Gosling holding up a kind of folded in half copy of Time magazine with George Clooney's face on the cover, holding it over half of his face. And this is like peak Gosling, peak George Clooney,
Giamatti, Hoffman.
Well, I'm just talking about like in terms
Oh,
of,
yeah.
Celebrity superstars. This was like very much a big era for the two of them. And it's like, oh, you want two of the like most attractive male actors, on a poster together in a really fun way. Great. And it was a really intriguing marketing move having the poster be like that. And I was, without really knowing anything about it, I certainly didn't know that it was, adapted from a play that I was reading on Wikipedia. The play was actually inspired by the Howard Dean campaign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so the play
now-
the play is called Farragut North, and it was an off-Broadway play, the debut of Beau Willimon, and it says loosely based on former Governor Howard Dean's 2004 Democratic primary election campaign. And so the play is billed as a classic tale of hubris set against a contemporary landscape about the lust for power and the costs one will endure to achieve it. So, I mean, that pretty much rings true. And it's not what I necessarily expected it to be when I first saw it, but I do remember being a little underwhelmed, but I thought that it was interesting and there were a lot of great performances and the writing was strong. It's just that the story wasn't, very compelling.
Well, it's kind of hard to tell what the story. Well, and there's several stories, and what's interesting, I could actually. It's funny. I feel like I could read my review as the synopsis.
Oh, I don't want to give my synopsis because it's only like 2 sentences long, and then I'll go. Then we can go into yours. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Up-and-coming Democratic political strategist Stephen Myers is on the right path to delivering Governor Mike Morris to the presidential general elections. But after he makes the mistake of meeting with the opponent's campaign manager, Stephen is fired from his dream job and uses personal knowledge about a 20-year-old intern's fling with Morris to blackmail himself back on staff and in a higher position, which has lethal results. And so...
Oh, yes.
Without going into like the step-by-step, like scene by scene of the movie, I figured that's kind of the best way to do it. Not really focusing so much on the kind of the budding romance between Stephen, who is 30, and the 20-year-old intern, who's played by Evan Rachel Wood, who's also excellent in it. And the realization that she had an encounter with the governor, and resulting in a pregnancy that was to be terminated.
Right. And I would hesitate to call their relationship a romance.
It had legs to be so. I mean, they certainly weren't in it just for like a fling or something. Like they
Well, debatable, I would say.
Okay.
Debatable.
Well, why don't you read your 11-year-old review?
Yes. And by the way, this was written 11 years ago, not when I was 11. So for those.
The Ides of March
I mean,
by Daniel Weiner.
Look, I would have written quite a review of. I wouldn't have understood it, but okay. So here's the review. And I'm just trying not to read it in John Lovitz's voice. I listened to a podcast recently where John Lovitz was the guest. I said, if you know your Shakespeare, then you know the line from which George Clooney. Okay. No, I'm just going to read it normally. If you know your Shakespeare, then you know the line from which George Clooney's new film derives its title, The Ides of March. Spoken in the play Julius Caesar, the warning is a premonition of Caesar's betrayal by the senators of Rome. A speculative filmmaker might infer from that title that a leader in the film, most likely the potential Democratic nominee for president, fictional Pennsylvania Governor Mike Morris, Clooney. Oh, and that's not even a complete sentence. All right, well, strike one against me.
Yeah, Dan, I've got notes for you.
Worry not, reader. I'm not posting any spoilers without fair warning or giving away any major plot turns or twists. However, it is fair for one to assume that betrayal of some sort will enter the picture at some point. The title is only the beginning of the blunt metaphor, symbolism, and allusion that run through the film. The central plot of the story focuses on Morris's assistant campaign manager, Stephen Myers, Ryan Gosling, an idealistic, extremely confident 30-year-old who can charm everyone from his colleagues to the press. As he and the senior campaign manager, Paul Zara, Philip Seymour Hoffman, prepare Morris for the Ohio Democratic primary, he becomes involved with a pretty young intern, Molly Stearns, Evan Rachel Wood, who is also the daughter of a high-up Democrat, actually the leader of the Democratic
the DNC,
National Committee. Yeah. So, needless to say, things don't remain as uncomplicated as they both would like, and Stephen is forced to make some difficult choices regarding both his personal life and the campaign. Actually, difficult choices are a constant theme of the Ides of March. Stephen is torn between Governor Morris's campaign and working for his competitor, the Democratic Senator Pullman from Arkansas, who is very close to Morris in the polls. He is torn between his loyalty to Zara and the tempting offer from Pullman's campaign manager, Tom Duffy, Paul Giamatti. He is torn between his affection for Molly and his dedication to Morris, and most crucially, he is torn between his own personal ideals and helping to make the country a better place, even if it means engaging in the type of cover-ups and politicking that he thought he'd be immune from working for a man such as Morris. That type of man is a man very similar to Barack Obama. The Barack Obama we all remember from the 2008 campaign trail, but perhaps even more liberal. He's not just pro-gay marriage. He doesn't even think the issue should be up for debate. He's against the death penalty. He's pro-choice. He's anti-war. In short, he's a liberal's wet dream. He's the 2008 Obama, but even better. And for the first part of the film, I even thought that it was unofficially Obama's first campaign ad for 2012. In the eyes of liberal staffers like Stephen, he has to win. Among the many big questions asked here concern the place of ideals in politics. At the beginning, Stephen is a bright-eyed optimist backing the perfect candidate and believing in him wholeheartedly. When he finds out that Morris may not be the perfect man, he seems betrayed and lost, not knowing whether to follow his personal morals or put them aside for the good of the country. The same goes for the disappointments he finds among his other idealized colleagues, Zara and Stearns. In the end, Stephen's ethical journey ends up making this just as much of a coming-of-age story as a political film. As a political film, it comes at an interesting time as America is gearing up for next year's election. The attitude of the film towards politics is not exactly something we've never heard before, but it comes with an especially pessimistic tone. Basically, we are to believe that backstabbing and secret deals are commonplace, and there is a constant game of one-upsmanship played by those on both sides. Oh, so naive. Like an 11-year-old. And in this story, it's Democrat versus Democrat. The Republicans are only mentioned in reference to how well they played the game and how it wins them elections. This isn't necessarily what the country needs right now, as we are already quite distrustful of politicians. However, it's also a bit heavy-handed, especially during the second half of the film, when the tone changes from satirical to more dramatic, and at times even thriller-esque, so much so that some scenes feel like they might have been taken from a John Grisham novel. Almost done.
Sweaty
Inevitably, the that's who was missing from this, Oliver Platt. All right. Inevitably, the Ides of March will be compared to other political films that have come before it, as well as Aaron Sorkin's definitive political TV series, The West Wing. It feels like Clooney and his collaborator, Grant Heslov, were going for a Sorkin-esque vibe, especially during the idealistic first half of the film, but without the frenetic pace. Then perhaps they were aiming for the satirical tone of David Mamet's sharp Wag the Dog, but falls short of the admirable cleverness of that script. The third film I found myself comparing this to was Mike Nichols' thinly veiled Bill Clinton film Primary Colors, which also features an idealistic young staffer discovering the fallibility of a candidate in whom he has placed his belief. It still falls short of that film's wit, which came from an incredibly sharp adaptation by Elaine May. This film, George Clooney's third directorial effort, is not a bad one. It's not a great one, though. Clooney gives a fine performance as Morris, and Gosling gives his third strong performance this year, though this will most likely stand as the least memorable film he's been in comparison with the great romantic comedy, Crazy Stupid Love, and the excellent noir thriller, Drive. The supporting cast is good, though Wood's role feels a bit underwritten, and Jeffrey Wright and Marissa Tomei only pop up here and there. The performances to watch this film for come from, unsurprisingly, Hoffman and Giamatti as the dueling campaign managers, making one wonder what kind of film Clooney might have made if the focus was on the political chess game played between these two wily veterans rather than the familiar debate over morals and ideals in politics. We can only hope that this won't be the last time we see Giamatti and Hoffman on screen together. In the end, The Ides of March is a good movie, but not nearly as good as it should be with its combination of director, cast, and subject matter.
Okay.
I know, like some of that feels very naive, especially the part about, oh, well, it's like they want us to believe that this happens all the time.
Well, and what's interesting about that is that there's a lot that I was noticing in this movie that comes back a couple years later when House of Cards comes out,
which is Beau Willimon.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Okay, so that makes a ton of sense.
I believe the creator.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense because when I was watching it, I had to look up. I was like, what year did House of Cards come out? And it was 2013 because it's like, oh, it's all about the inner workings and the back dealings that happen in DC. Well,
and the dirty shit that happened.
Yeah, and
dirty
and
dealings.
A lot of the things like what they're really doing in Ohio while they're campaigning is also trying to woo, Jeffrey Wright's character, he's a senator. Is that right? Yeah, he's a senator,
yes.
In Ohio, and if they get his endorsement, then they essentially take Ohio. But in order to do that, they have to offer him Secretary of State, which...
well, if I may...
You may.
If I may. So it's not... So they have to offer him vice president.
I don't remember that.
The other campaign has offered him Secretary of State.
I don't remember hearing anything about vice president.
He says, I want on the ticket.
Oh,
he says,
I don't remember that.
He says to Gosling when they meet, he says, he's like, I want on the ticket because he's already got from the opponent's campaign, he's got they've offered him Secretary of State, and he's going to put his endorsement behind the opponent, whose name I'm
Pullman
blanking on at the moment. Pullman,
yeah.
Yes, thank you. I keep wanting to say Sullivan for some reason.
No, it's not.
So, but yeah, he so the senator has already been offered Secretary of State, and he's going to put his endorsement, because there's the whole thing where Stephen finds this out because Stephen goes and has a meeting Tom Duffy.
Right. Paul Giamatti's character, the opponent's campaign manager.
During which Duffy tells him, he's like, no, we've got Thompson. Like, Thompson is giving us his endorsement. And that's kind of, I mean, and you know what? Maybe it's not true, but I'm pretty sure that they do confirm that. And then, yeah, because I remember they have a conversation, Thompson and Steven, where he's telling them, he's like, I want on the ticket, you don't. I
think I've got that clip pulled. Why don't we listen to it?
You need me? Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing since Super Tuesday. All of a sudden, I'm a very popular guy. What are your polls telling you?
That Pullman's negatives are high, mid-40s. Senator, we have an open seat in the White House. Republicans have Dick. They're disorganized. They can't find a nominee that's not a world-class fuck-up. They look like Democrats. No Republican's going to show up to vote for their guy. But if Pullman gets a Democratic nod, they will show up to vote against him.
And you think they won't for your guy? You think Morris gets into the independents?
I sure do. Senator, I'm a bit confused. We need your delegates. We need you. Your fundraising. And I guess it was my understanding that your endorsement a week before Ohio would win this for us.
I guess that's as much as I pulled.
it doesn't happen in that conversation.
Okay.
It's later. It's when Stephen.
Oh, okay.
It's after Stephen has been fired from the Morris campaign. And it's after Stephen has gone to Duffy and Duffy has turned him down.
Right.
Meanwhile, no one knows what he knows. He's playing his cards really close. And, because at this point, Stephen knows that Governor Morris, slept with an intern,
right,
got her pregnant. And then that also, which is Stephen kind of does. It's funny because Stephen gets the money for Molly in a really shady way, where he talks to Ben, who's played by Max Minghella,
right,
who's the other. He's the even younger one, and he's also the other man that Molly's been seeing.
Oh, has she been seeing him? I don't remember that.
When she comes back from the clinic, and she's in his room.
Oh, I mean, I thought I kind of viewed that as just them being peers.
No. They definitely had a thing going on, and you could see it. It's subtle, but it's first it's the way that he talks to her, and that like it's like he talks to her the way that you would tell your girlfriend that you got a promotion. And he's like, oh yeah, because it's funny when Paul fires Stephen, they're in this room and Ben is kind of sitting in the same, they're in a hotel suite. Ben is sitting in the same room with them. And then when it's obvious what's going on, Ben gets up, but he doesn't leave. He just moves to the other like side of the suite.
Right.
And
he just isn't sitting
listening
right there with them.
You also see his expression during, Molly's, like the press conference after Molly dies. Ben's expression is very like shocked, taken aback, because she also kills herself in his room.
That's true. Yeah. I thought that was her room.
No.
Because Morris asks Stephen, like, what were you doing in her room? We don't have to debate this. I thought that it was just hers, and then, he just popped by to be like,
that's right. He does, and he's not like, it wasn't her room. No. Anyway,
doesn't matter.
The point is, I'm going to say with fair certainty that Ben is the implied like actual boyfriend.
I hadn't gotten that sense. I don't think that it really matters though.
No, it doesn't, except that it matters. It matters in the way that Molly's portrayed. And I think that role, that character is, I mean, she's very much a pawn. And I'm not saying that it's not realistic,
Right.
but the character is very much written as, less of a person, more of what she represents, because she's the daughter of this high-ranking Democrat, but she's also like an intern, so she like comes across as like not, I quote unquote Democratic royalty.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
No, she comes across, she's
But
the intern.
I don't remember Steven, Ryan Gosling's character, necessarily knowing that right away about her.
No, he doesn't.
That's revealed. I mean, she reveals that to him, and he's kind of taken by surprise. So it's not like she's walking around like everybody knows.
No, that's what I'm saying. She's not. So it's like I think that's what I'm saying. There could be more nuance with her character, whereas her character is really, and then plus you have it where, like I don't think I feel like it might have been a little better had they stayed away from the implication of her being with Ben, which I guess
I didn't get that at all.
Pick up on that. And I don't know that I picked up on that the first time I saw it, but when I watched it this last time, it just seemed really I
saw them mostly as peers, as if like she worked, like as if he was maybe the one who coordinated the interns and volunteers.
I mean, either that or he wanted
to
be with
maybe.
her. It also feels like he wouldn't have had, so like it's funny because with Ben, and if you take these three men if you take them as the three men in Molly's life, it's these three stages of experience and also being jaded, where there's, if you think of Ben like seems to have like a genuine affection for her, especially the way he's affected by her death. And that is that innocence, that naivete. Stephen is not, he doesn't lie to her. He's very upfront with her about like, okay, this is what this is. And they even have a playful thing where he's like, oh, that was the cleaning lady.
Right.
And she sends him the note.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
they have a playful thing going on. Yeah.
They have a playful thing. That's why I shied away from referring to it as a romance, because it feels like they kind of both know what's up.
Yeah, but I saw it as more of just like a on the sly romance, because they were having a drink together in the hotel bar. It's not like people couldn't have seen them, together.
No, that's true. At the interns
hotel bar, which is, it doesn't matter who sees them. If an intern sees them, it's even better for the intern. So
right.
I don't know. It's I don't know. I liked the I was gonna say I like the chemistry that they have together. They have a really fun dynamic, and I think that because of her family, she doesn't seem intimidated by the fact that he is much higher up on the totem pole than she is. And I don't know. I think that it kind of plays in nicely to how things go.
But I'm sorry, to come back to that, like that 3-step buildup of going from Ben to Stephen to then Morris. Morris is cold when Stephen confronts him about it.
Sure, it's really fun because you get the impression that Morris is just this like do-good guy. He doesn't want to play games. He even says like, oh, Thompson wants Secretary of State or whatever. And he's like, it's not going to happen. Find another way to get Ohio. And it's like, he's not there to like play dirty. He's there because he truly believes in the things that he's saying. And then I'll play the clip. You get this scene towards the end.
Oh.
I took her phone and I found a note.
I thought it was an accident.
I don't know, Mike. You're gonna have to tell me you're the last person she called. Note says she's pregnant, got an abortion, and doesn't want to hurt you.
Then why would she leave a note that could only do that?
She's 20.
What do you want?
Paul's gone. Today. I set a meeting with you and Thompson, and you promise him the ticket. You get 356 pledged delegates. You get North Carolina. You take office, and you make right what so many people have made wrong. All the things that we both believe in.
Well, I don't believe in extortion. I don't believe in tying myself to you for the next 8 years.
4 years. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
What were you doing in her room?
Housekeeping before you made page 1.
No, you were fired. You were out. What were you doing in her room?
I was fixing a situation. I got a call. Someone from the hotel thought I could help, and they called me.
So you were off the campaign, but you thought it was important to fix things? It was your voice the other night on the phone. You were fucking her. What'd you do, Stephen?
I lent her some money, and I gave her a ride.
I bet you did. There's no note.
Okay, Mike, there's no note.
Show it to me.
You think I brought it here? That's how people get hurt.
Okay, let's play this out. You're not wearing a wire because everything you suggested is illegal, and you wouldn't fare too well in federal prison. You were fucking her and she told you about her situation. There are no records or conversations between the two of us, and since she's had an abortion, there's no DNA evidence. So if there's no note, then it's your word against mine. Your word. A fired, disgruntled employee, or a sitting governor. There's no note.
It's your call, Governor.
Yeah.
Man, you don't often get sinister Clooney.
No, and
In
I think
fact-
that it helps that he's directing himself because no one else will direct him that way.
No, yeah, it's interesting because he's very good at it, and it's something. So I liked this movie more second go around. I liked this movie more this time around.
I think I agree. I agree with that, and I wonder for me personally if it's because, you know, after the past 11 years, there's a lot that's happened. So I think that, you know, we've all become a little bit more politically minded, and I don't know, the landscape of politics has changed so much that it was definitely intriguing to go back to what I would call a simpler time, where there's like no Republican who could possibly win, and it's all about the Democrat. And or at least in the fiction of this story, you know, we all, you know how history ended up, but yeah, I don't know. It just kind of like harkens to a different time, a different vibe politically. So it almost felt fantasy.
Yeah, well, I mean, interestingly, I feel like a lot of people had that feeling in 2016. Or earlier on, especially, where it was, like, oh boy, we've got two Democrats kind of clawing at each other, Hillary and Bernie, and then over on the Republican side, especially like towards the beginning of the year in 2016, I mean, like Paul Ryan,
Oh my God, yeah.
you know, Trump was kind of the outlier. And anyway, not to make this about that,
Right?
but,
no, of course.
But yes, but also, and then also you have in 2011, like you're still in the early years of smartphones.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have like all of the, like you've got Twitter, you've got these things, but they're not as influential. Like Facebook isn't in 2011 is not yet like this massive like misinformation minefield.
Yeah.
So like none of that is a factor in it. but it's interesting because I feel like there is that question of the ideals and what do you sacrifice in the name of the greater good. And it's like, yes, Morris is and you realize this, he's a manipulative asshole,
Right.
but like, do you want someone like that on your side? Because if he's the manipulative asshole who's going to manipulate, marriage equality and, like healthcare and push all of these progressive, missions forward, and pursue all of like this progressive legislation. I mean, isn't that who we want? Like they say it in the movie, it's been echoed like ever since, louder and louder,
Yeah.
that the Republicans play the game better.
Yeah, well, I think that what they do successfully in this movie is eliminate any of your thoughts about what's going on the other side of the aisle. It's like it doesn't matter what's going on with the Republicans. That's
Nope.
not an issue. It's only
As
about
stated in my review.
Ohio. It's only about this. And it's like whoever gets Thompson's endorsement is who's going to get the ticket, and whoever gets the ticket is probably going to win, especially, as they're saying, if it's Morris, because he's more likely to appeal to the independents. And so, at least in the fiction of this movie, and it simplifies things, and it just makes it like that's not important. What's more important is the moves that are being made within this particular campaign, and the lies and the secrecy that are going on. And I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. What were you saying?
No, it's a story. It's about values. I think another thing that's helped me appreciate this film is first of all, I watched it in I think 3 installments. Okay. So having being able to take the time with each installment, also having since then spent much of the last 10 years teaching about literature and analyzing literature, I feel like I see a lot more of the big picture in this story, and I see much more of the purpose. Whereas when I saw it initially, all I had to go off of was the clever marketing campaign.
Right.
My knowledge of Clooney's directorial work prior to this, which actually I never saw Leatherheads, so it was pretty much good night and good luck. Leatherheads was before this.
So, okay, there was Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Right. Oh, okay. So maybe Leatherheads
there was Confessions
was
of a Dangerous Mind, Good Night and Good Luck, right?
Both of which I saw.
Yeah, which I loved. I mean, I feel like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is up there for me for sure.
Oh no, Leatherheads is before this. Leatherheads is 2008.
And he did do Good Night and Good Luck, right?
Yeah. So this was his fourth.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to leave a comment on that website that you wrote the review on and be like, actually.
Look, I was 11. What did I know? No, I feel like I noticed a lot more, and the questions of ideals and values, and the fact that does it for the big picture, should the average voter care that Mike Morris impregnated an intern and inadvertently led to her suicide?
Right.
That one person whose face and name he knows, when he can help positively impact the lives of millions of strangers.
Yeah.
So it's like, what should Steven care about? What should the average voter care about? They really do a great job with that. I think Ryan Gosling does a great job of showing you like what he's thinking. Like at one point, because I hadn't remembered a lot of it, so I couldn't remember. I was like, oh, is he gonna, like, when he finds out about there's the baby and the abortion, is it the type of thing where, like, if this gets out, he's gonna say that the baby was his? Is he gonna, like, throw himself on the grenade, so to speak?
Right.
I mean, of course that doesn't turn out to happen. It's also this double standard of, like, because he also tells when Steven gives her the money, gives Molly the money and says, like, go, you're done. It's like, oh, so his career, this guy gets to go to the White House, but she has to go home and find another job and not work in politics.
Right. Although I wouldn't be too worried about her because she's got a pretty good leg up, coming from
well,
what?
No, I'm saying, yeah, in terms of privilege, yes. No, it's not like she's, like, going to the unemployment line, but still, it's that message of your career doesn't matter.
Right.
His does.
Right. Absolutely. No, and I think that there's definitely a shift because, towards the beginning, it's almost like the moment where he gets this, like, picks up this phone accidentally and hears the governor's voice calling Molly at 2:30 in the morning. That's when he goes from being like, I believe in this candidate. I'm like honored to be where I am, and I am just happy to be here, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get this guy in the White House. And then as soon as that happens, he's thinking, oh, all of this is totally effed up. And the more he gets into it, the more he figures that out for himself. He gets completely thrown under the bus by his colleague, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, who leaks the information of him meeting with the opponent's campaign manager to Ida, the writer for the Times, and which makes it easier for him to fire him. And then he can't get the job with the opponent because he's toxic at this point. He's just been fired. And now he's in a point of complete desperation, and he's becoming one of them by, playing games and, using these kind of evil tactics against them for his own personal gain. And he becomes part of the system.
And he makes the choice, and he gets, and he's warned. He's warned by Zara, Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's warned by Duffy, Paul Giamatti. He's warned. He's like, if you get in any deeper, like, forget it. There's a point of no return.
Right.
Yeah. I love Philip Seymour Hoffman in this, the just that sense of betrayal that he carries across, and his the speech that he gives Stephen about why he's like his past and his history and how and about loyalty and how he kind of stood by a candidate and got that candidate into office. Right. And that there's a lot of interesting setup where they're they're showing you these are all of the paths that Stephen could follow. And it might be a little pessimistic, but it's still realistic to say, okay, he ends up going, he knows, he's like, this is what my thing, this is what I can do. And he's also got, like, in this huge complicated game of poker, like Stephen has got
House of Cards.
House of Cards, yes. Yes, and Stephen could knock them all over. But he's got the ace up his sleeve, and it's like, well, do I choose to use this really tragic, story, this, suicide and pregnancy? Yeah. Do I use this? And he does. Right. And he, at the end, Ida is, he keeps her at a distance. Yep. And kind of pushes her. By the way, do you think that, I think the name Ida was in the play Farragut North, but I wondered, I was like, Ides, is that
I hadn't thought about
intentional, or-
that, but I don't know.
I don't think so. The Ides of March.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's actually an unfortunate name for a character in this movie, especially, it's just so on the nose. But
Ida Horowitz. Well, I thought maybe she was supposed to be like a Maggie Haberman
yeah,
type.
yeah,
Of
I don't know. I thought that Marissa Tomei is always excellent, and
yes.
I liked the character. It was important for that character to exist. And I feel like, even though you always want to see more Marissa Tomei, she definitely was just like, they utilized that character at the right moments. Yeah, I don't know. And just going back to Philip Seymour Hoffman for a second, you were talking before about Ryan Gosling's, year that year. And it's interesting because I feel like we have a very like bitter year for Philip Seymour Hoffman, where it's this character who, is kind of just like going through the drudges basically, and eventually gets, becomes victim to this blackmail. And he's also the, the kind of disgruntled manager in Moneyball. And,
Right.
I don't know. He's probably...
Is this the same year as Charlie Wilson's War?
I feel like it might be.
Because it's after Doubt. I'm looking at his film, which, I mean, and man, like Paul Giamatti and Philip Seymour Hoffman are just like two of my favorite actors. And
so this year is Moneyball and the Ides of March. Charlie Wilson's War was earlier. Yeah, that was 2007. And then there was Synecdoche, New York.
And then The Master was after this. Was
Correct.
The year after.
The year
it was 2012. Right. I mean, wow. Philip Seymour Hoffman. God, I feel like everything he does.
Yeah.
Everything he did.
That's right.
He was just so magnetic and believable. And you're like, yes, I believe this guy. And to see him and Giamatti together, and I always felt like Giamatti got kind of a raw deal in terms of being like one of the great actors especially of the 21st century. I think like you had Sideways, and I guess Cinderella Man, he got an Oscar nomination for that as well. But
I always kind of felt like, he probably lost a lot of roles to Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's I have nothing to back that up with.
Right. Yeah. Well, because like kind of that, dad bod sad sack.
Yeah. But I think that it's a matter of like, that like low talking, like, listen to me. I am going to tell you some shit about some shit that Philip Seymour Hoffman can do. Paul Giamatti just can't quite do the same way.
Well, Paul Giamatti, it's like, American Splendor. That was the other.
Oh yeah, Harvey Pekar.
Really fantastic performance of his. Philip Seymour Hoffman could do more. Like Paul Giamatti couldn't have played Lester Bangs.
No,
Almost Famous.
No.
Paul. I wouldn't have bought
played,
Paul Giamatti.
Is it Scotty in Boogie Nights?
Yeah. Or you're right. It's Scotty in Boogie Nights, Dusty in Twister.
Yeah.
There are a lot.
I think he could have done Dusty
actually,
and Twister. I think he could have done that.
Synecdoche, New York, he could have done.
Well, and that's the thing is, for some reason in my mind, it was Paul Giamatti in Synecdoche, New York, and then revisiting it, it's like, oh no, that's Philip Seymour Hoffman. Got it.
Right. So he's but Philip Seymour Hoffman just like unreal in this, and having him facing off with Paul Giamatti, I got like actor jitters.
Yeah,
and
this is an amazing cast. It's so
right.
good.
Yeah, no.
And just like you said, right, Jeffrey Wright, who's hotter than ever right now. He's Commissioner Gordon.
Jeffrey Wright, I mean, sadly, like Jeffrey Wright represents, I think, the extent of the diversity in this cast.
No, that's true. But I mean, you look at his career, and I mean, I was always a fan of Basquiat. You know, he was so good in that, and
That was the first thing I remember.
I think probably most people, me too.
Right, but I don't know that most people knew of him before Basquiat.
Right.
Like I felt like even though that came out during like the indie movie
Sure.
boom, it was a movie that flew a little bit further under the radar. I love Basquiat.
Yeah.
I watched it several times.
So good.
Awesome cast in that. But Jeffrey Wright, Basquiat, Shaft as the drug kingpin Peoples Hernandez.
I haven't talked about Shaft in a long time. And then, you know,
Don't worry, I won't go.
going
off
back to
15
Philip Seymour
minutes.
Hoffman and Philip Seymour Hoffman's last roles in the what is it called? Hunger Games movies. Jeffrey Wright's in those too. So
That's
Yeah.
right. Wow, I keep forgetting Philip Seymour Hoffman was right. Those were his last.
yeah, he was
films,
like
right?
the architect or whatever it was, you know.
In the Hunger Games films. Yeah,
Yeah.
and right. And Jeffrey Wright is. I mean, Jeffrey Wright pops up. He's in the the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Felix.
Of course, iconic role in that.
Yeah,
franchise,
he's,
Felix
you know,
Leiter.
I'm always happy to see him.
Yes, absolutely versatile as all get out. He does the soft spoken thing well, but that's the other thing I love about Basquiat is it's out there. If you're a fan of Jeffrey Wright,
Yeah.
if you enjoy his work, you watch like Westworld or
Right,
anything,
yeah.
and you've never seen Basquiat,
Well,
check that shit
God, he's
out.
so good. Okay, but we
Yeah.
need to kind of move on in to the meat and potatoes of the show, or I guess I should call this the dessert of the show. The meat and potatoes is really the first hour.
Yeah.
And Dan, like, what in the world could you possibly do with a movie like this?
Well, you know, I mean, of course, it's like as you're watching it, if you're not already thinking, oh, this is based on a play, you're thinking of how you would stage it as a play, or at least I did, as I was watching it before I then was like, oh, yes, that's right.
It
It's based on
was
a play.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about like, okay, how would you stage it? Like, could you stage it where you have a section of the stage that just shows like kind of at all times, like what Molly is doing and just have it be like from where she's just like an intern at her desk to, and like, because one of the interesting things about the sequence in which she, you know, at the end of which she's found dead is that, so Stephen doesn't pick her up from the abortion clinic because he goes after he drops her off. This is after he gets fired and he goes to Duffy and is doing all of these things. There's all this stuff going on. It's not just like he doesn't just go to a bar
Right.
and get drunk
No.
and forget to pick her up. I mean, look, I'm going to go on the record and say there's no good reason to neglect picking somebody up from something
Yeah.
like
Yes.
that. So, but I think to see all of that action happen on stage when you've got this little portion of the stage that's just like lit by like one little light that just shows all of her waiting in the coffee shop, for her standing outside, her getting back to the room, because that's the thing is we don't see the people that are pawns in political games. We don't see that. So, and then it's like, oh, it's based on a play. So maybe I could read the play and do that, and you'd lose all that wonderful eye acting on stage. But I thought it would be, do we have a story that really, I mean, and yes, like Primary Colors is kind of the perspective of an intern, but I'm like, I'd be interested to see a story from the perspective of a character like Molly.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not in this story, but a similar political story. I would like, what is the if she is sleeping with someone, why is she sleeping with them? If she is, refusing to sleep with someone, I mean, also like the other things beyond sleeping. I'm taking the issues that are at play in this story, but also saying, why is she working on the campaign? What are her goals? Would it be interesting to have someone like a Molly type character who the older, more experienced people in the game are treating her like a Molly, as in this movie, but what if she's really more of a, I guess, Molly, more like a Molly's game? No, but I'm thinking like, what if she's just in this? She's not portrayed as a player.
No.
And what if she is a player? What if she is a, someone who's like, I know what it takes in the game of politics and I'm going to do that. What if she's the type of character who is not if she gets pregnant, she's going to go and just like that it's
okay.
Like she's going to deal, like she's gonna fuck it. I don't need anyone to drive me there or pick me up. And okay. I'm not saying that this character should have done that.
Right.
I'm saying that I don't know if we've had that story before. We've had the story from the perspectives of the power players. Right. What about a story from the perspective of someone who actually wants to do this with their life? For someone who's like, oh my God, yes, the scheming, the tricks, the games, the 3-dimensional chess, the poker. I want to build that house of cards and live in that shit. So what about that? What about that story? And I don't think it works as a play. It might not work as a movie. It might work as a series. And I mean, like we've got so many political series, and there's so many, like, Newsroom kind of comes from the angle of up and comers. We have so many stories of the up and comers, but why don't we even go like lower than that and really see like, okay, people who are getting into this at the beginning, they can't all just be these like blind, like naive optimists who are just who you're just like, oh, poor thing, you are gonna have your heart broken. Make them the heartbreaker.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Off topic, a Tom Petty biopic would be lovely now that I mentioned Heartbreaker, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
So that's where I'm going here is let's take the political drama and see it from a new perspective.
Gotcha.
John, what say you?
I was thinking that it would be really cool to see an adaptation of this as a graphic novel. And to kind of go on in a series of graphic novels about the inner workings of different campaigns and the different things that go on, behind closed doors, the trickery, the blackmail. What's up?
Like real campaigns?
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh, I thought that would be really interesting, like a graphic novel about like that. I don't know what went on the Howard Dean campaign, but
I think that's where you get into some really tricky territory, because I'm sure that there's a lot of things that, is just speculation, or, there's more to the story than you would possibly know. And for it to be a full story, you'd have to just go into fiction. But I don't know. So yeah, I was thinking that a series of graphic novels would be kind of cool.
That'd be
I don't know what the world of graphic novels is like in terms of like politics, if it goes there much.
Yeah.
But that's what I got.
Political graphic novel. I'm looking.
I know. I could hear you typing.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I've got. It's. I don't know. There's not really too much more to say. I think that this story is a really fascinating story, and you could really, I don't know, fine tune the characters in the graphic novel form in a way that you wouldn't be able to get if you had to like cast somebody. And I mean, not to say like this movie was fantastically cast. I mean, Ryan Gosling was excellent in it. Evan Rachel Wood was excellent. George Clooney was excellent. And as we were saying before, I really appreciated that he chose to show himself as not a great guy. And that is, you know, a side of him that we so infrequently get to see. And I'm glad that he did that. And, you know, we know George Clooney's personal politics, and he doesn't shy away from it in the movies that he, you know, directs, you know, Good Night and Good Luck being a great example. I can't speak too much about, you know, Leatherheads or Confessions of a Dangerous Mind in terms of politics, because those don't go there. But, you know,
Right.
but I will say I admire what I've seen of his. I remember seeing Leatherheads when it came out and not loving it, but Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is one of my favorite movies.
Fantastic.
I mean,
movie.
Sam Rockwell as Chuck Barris, forget it.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it's outstanding movie. We don't. I can't start off on. That's one I need to rewatch.
You know, okay. Confessions of a
it's been a
Dangerous
while.
Mind is based on the autobiography that Chuck Barris wrote that nobody can confirm, because it's about how he, the host of the Gong Show and whatever, in the match game, was a CIA operative and would use the trips that he would chaperone from people on the match game to follow out CIA covert operations. It's fascinating.
It is. I want to read the book at some point, but man, the movie is a trip.
It's a trip. Drew Barrymore, Sam Rockwell, Julia Roberts,
Clooney,
and George Clooney. Yeah, and it's wonderful. It's so good.
But in terms of the Ides of March, though, and maybe this is a movie that, you know, if you saw it then and had kind of the similar reaction to me, like it has its moments, it's worth checking out. I'm not just because like, oh, it might play better watching it on the, you know, watching it at home, with the perspective of the last 10 or so years. It's definitely, I think, a different movie, especially if you've followed politics and if you've become more politically aware, as John and I have, or you know, over the last decade. It's a you know, it's an interesting movie, and also just like, you know, you miss Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, it's a great performance from one of the greats.
Because you can, I mean, you know, you miss Paul Giamatti. You can catch him on Billions and doing very similar type of work to this. And, you know, Ryan Gosling is certainly still working, and George Clooney, and they're all, you know, still with us. And
Marissa
you know,
Tomei.
and Marissa Tomei. Yeah. Which, by the way, speaking of Marissa Tomei and Philip Seymour Hoffman, if we do ever talk about this movie, I'm sure it might be a while, but Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
That's an intense movie.
That is an intense movie. That might be my favorite Ethan Hawke performance.
2006?
9?
Really?
8, 6, 7?
Somewhere around
7, 8. Somewhere, yeah, it's somewhere around there. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman. Albert Finney, I believe, is in it as well. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke. They are brothers who they're up to no good, and this is before brothers could pass their time by hosting a podcast. They rob their parents' jewelry store. Right. And Marissa Tomei is like Philip Seymour Hoffman's, I don't know, wife or girlfriend in it. And yes, there is a Philip Seymour Hoffman, Marissa Tomei sex scene.
It's something.
Glorious.
It's something.
But yeah, intense movie, but very good. Highly recommended. So if you're like, I miss Philip Seymour Hoffman, that's one to definitely go back and look at as well.
So Dan, I've been trying to find a way to weasel in the title of our next movie throughout this episode, but it's impossible. So why don't you just tell everybody?
Oh, well, sorry, because, yes, I'm sorry. We could go back and, so once they catch wind of
was Philip Seymour Hoffman
is
going to inherit his parents' jewelry store?
Well, no, it's actually that Stephen inherits Philip Seymour Hoffman's job once Morris catches wind of Thompson's desire to take the vice presidential position on the ticket. So, yes, it is 1960s film adaptation, also based on a stage play, Inherit the Wind.
Yes.
Starring Spencer Tracy and not just Spencer Tracy, Dick York, Gene Kelly, and Frederick March.
Right, because we're doing an entire month of vaguely March-themed movies.
If we can make the connection, it's happening.
That's
But
right.
Inherit the Wind, and also, and John and I had talked about this, offline, and we'll talk about it next week as well. But especially with the advent of a lot of freedom restricting legislation across the country, especially when it comes to education, whether that is education about systemic racism or the existence of LGBTQI plus people. Inherit the Wind is a story well worth talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, looking forward to discussing that film.
Well, Dan, as you are running for president, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.